This is my autopilots, and it just goes like this, and it's just happening. It's just going, and it's got inertia. And if I want to access this, here's an exercise. I'll do with you guys. Let's say, for the sake of this exercise, that this represents everything in the world that there is to know. So this circle represents everything that there is to know. And if this is everything that there is to know, what's the likelihood that, like, how much, if we're going to be, very generous, how much of a sliver would I know? This is everything there is to know.
What is that?
Yeah, like, let's be really nice.
A polka dot.
Let's be really nice. All right? This is what I know. So there's everything that there is to know, and this is what I know. Okay? So now there's things that I know, and then there's things that I don't know. Okay? Now there's also this, like, in between. And so if I told you, room full of ladies, like, have you ever had a time where there was, like, this obstacle, or there's this thing going on in life that, like, made it really difficult? Like, at that time, it was a difficult part about being a woman. It was like, just, I don't know, whatever it is. Insert obstacle here that only women would know about, right? And like, you're talking about that obstacle amongst each other. I'm like, oh, I know. Like, I know. I get it. I know. And you're like, but do you? Like, do you? I don't think you do. I really don't. And I'm like, no, I know what it's like. I know it's, and you're like, no, like, you really couldn't know what that's like. Like, Rob, you don't know. You're not a woman. You will never know what that's like. Like, I acknowledge, like, I love my kids as much as a dad can love their kids. But I acknowledge that there's something I don't comprehend about the way that mothers love their children. I get that, like, I don't understand it fully. Like, I can sense that there's something else there that, like, a mom, like, when moms turn and go, nothing, you couldn't understand how a mother feels about their children. I would say I agree with you. I don't think I can comprehend that. Like, as someone who's never been a mother, never will be a mother, I don't think I can. I can only comprehend what it's like to be a dad. So, like, an adoptive mom might be able to understand how I feel. And I understand, if she's like, like, oh, I love my kids as much as you could love someone that didn't come out of your body. I'm like, oh, I get that. And she's like, oh, you would get that, right? But what this falls into is, like, you go, Rob, you don't know what that's like. You don't know what this other struggle is like. You don't know what, you don't know what it's like to be a woman. But I do have awareness to it. I have access to this. So this falls into this other category, and let's just, like, be really generous again. And this is my awareness. So, yeah, this is my consciousness, and what this is this falls into a category that I know, I don't know. What it is, this is everything I know. The reason why I know it is because I can do it. I know it. But this is in my awareness. It's in my access of consciousness, and I don't know it, but I know I don't know it. Like, I understand that there's this thing called a woman, and I also comprehend that I don't know what it's like to be one. I also, like, know that there's these rocket ships that go all the way to the moon, and I also know, like, I don't comprehend. I know that I don't know how to build one. I don't know that, but I understand that there's a concept called physics and rocket science and all this stuff. Like, I have access to it, awareness to it, but I don't know it, right? If I turn and go, oh yeah, I know rocket science. You're like, do you? I'm like, yeah, I know rocket. That would be like me saying, I just know that I don't know it. It's awareness, right? Does this make sense? Okay, why is that important? That's important because if this is everything there is to know, this is what we call our blind spot. The reason why they call it a blind spot is because I can't see it. Like, you need someone else to even let you know that it's there. So this represents everything I don't know. I don't know. Meaning, I don't even know that I don't know it. I have no access to it, no awareness to it. Like, it's not even a concept of even possibility to me because it lives within what I don't know. Like, have you ever read Genesis and how patronizing the description is of like how God created the universe, and people were like, couldn't possibly. Well, I think it's fascinating how physics keeps lining up in a very complicated description of that description. But I'm like, remember 4,000 years ago, this entity called God was talking to a guy that had no access to understanding what molecules in the earth and all, I mean, like, and no, a round earth floating in space and revolving around a sun, like, no access. So he spoke to him like he's a kindergartner. He's like, on the first day. You know what I mean? It was like, and you read it, now you read it with like, how physicists say that the universe, and you're like, oh my gosh, let there be light. Well, the Big Bang Theory is that there was an energy blast that came from nothing, and light, in a moment, in a millisecond, light, energy, turned into matter. In milliseconds. This is what physics is proving today through their science. Yep. I'm like, well, that kind of lines up with how the 4-year-old version of the story. But remember, his comprehension of awareness when he's like, look, on the first day, I said, let there be light, and there was. And you're like,
Go!
hey!
Magical.
There's just truths in the world. We can just submit to it or not, right? Pretty amazing, huh? That's a trip. That's pretty funny.
That was really good.
But there's just certain, so if he would have started going, he's like, well, listen, like, you know, listen, first I created these microscopic particles that you have no aware, they're called, you know, electrons, and I made them revolve around neutrons, and neutrons created atoms, and I did all these things, and I put them together, and blah, 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 and then there was this planet, and then I took it, and I'm like, he's like, on the first day, I said, let there be light. On the second, you know, and he's like, and he just explained it very, very simply, because he had no access to this. Well, this falls into what I don't know. Right now, if there's an alien civilization truck stop on the dark side of the moon, an intergalactic highway truck stop right there, and it's just flowing all in and out like Men in Black and everything, we have no access. Like, we don't even know what we don't know. We're completely ignorant to it because it's in a blind spot. Right? Now, if something's in a blind spot, how do we ever get access to it? Like, I don't know what I don't know. How will I ever know it if I don't know I don't know it? I don't even know what questions to ask. Well, one way is that someone points it out to me. Somebody tells you, Rob, you got food in your teeth.
Yeah, I did. Now I know.
And now I know. And knowing is half the battle kind of thing, right? So now I know. So I have some, how are you?
Hi.
Need some help?
I'm here.
Okay.
Class.
Come on in.
The next one, but
Yeah, come on
Sorry to
in.
interrupt.
Hang out, man.
Enjoy.
Hang out.
Come on and listen in.
So the way that we create this, it's so awareness, science, people like that, they really like it when we call this stuff like awareness or consciousness. They like that. We use those words, they're good. When we use words like spirit or soul, they don't like those words. They're like, we don't like those words as much. But a consciousness, scientists will say, we acknowledge that there's a consciousness about human beings that makes them distinct from like that tree. There's an awareness. There's something that exists outside of like just the atoms and molecules moving through that tree and just the atoms. There's this consciousness. And I think that's a lot to do with our awareness, our levels of awareness. But what if I told you that levels of awareness, when it comes to these habits, that successful people, the most successful people in the world, have just created this autopilot of just creating access, creating awareness into these things that they don't know. Meaning they're so learning-based that they're actually learning things they didn't even know they should be learning, right? And the way that they do that, how you go from, because I can learn something I know I don't know.
Isn't that an aha by definition?
Should be. Because I can learn about this because I have awareness of it, but when I can't even learn about this unless I got to understand that there's just the way that things work. And where is it that it can create access into this? Like if I'm going to jump in here and interrupt this, this is where I jump in. This is the one thing that I have control over. My thoughts. I can control the thinking. And when I can interrupt this pattern, and I can change the way I think to a level of my awareness, my consciousness on a whole new level, and I'm thinking in possibilities, because that's how you get to this. You think in possibilities. What's just possible? And you let people speak to you in possibilities. Someone comes up to you and says, you know, there's an intergalactic highway on the backside of the moon and all this stuff, and you're like, no, that's not true. And you're like, well, I guess that's possible. Do you have any evidence of that? Like, yeah, here's some pictures, here's some videos, here's some that. Or they're like, no, I just believe it. And you're like, well, I choose to not believe that. That's interesting. You don't have to believe it, but I'm open to possibilities. I'm like, you know what, if you had any evidence of that, I'd hear you. If you had video, if you've been there, whatever, like, I'll listen. I'm open to the possibility that this is real. I'm seeking my evidence, right? I'll seek my story because I'm open to possibilities with the way I think. And based on the way I think, creates my emotions, creates my actions, and so on, and that's where I interrupt these patterns. So how do I get into what I don't know, and like making $1 million a month? I don't know how. And if I did, I think that all of us in this room, if we knew how to do it, I think we would do it. I think if I gave you two choices, I'm like, hey, here's one job, it pays $500 an hour. Here's another job, it pays $15 an hour. Which job do you want? You haven't even asked me what this job does. You just automatically said this one? And by the way, in life, isn't it kind of true that like, this job's usually even easier than that job? Like, if working hard was the reward for riches, wouldn't like these apprentice plumbers digging holes and, you know, all this stuff, like, and gardeners, and they would be rich, but the hardest working guys in our community are not the wealthiest. It's the guys who get paid to think. The guys who get paid to think strategically are the ones who get paid the most. So why is it you think we don't take the $500 an hour activities?
Fear.
Because
We don't even know what they are.
Yeah.
I think if you truly knew what they were, I think it'd be simple. You would just as simple as you did, you go, I'll take that one. But we don't know because it falls. We know we don't know. We know that they exist. We just don't know like what they are. Remember I said earlier, I'm like the boss over there, like I would forget my job. Well, in this business called real estate, we don't even really learn what it is to begin with, let alone having forgot it. We don't even know what our job is. We just showed up one day, and through social conventions, through other realtors, just like our family, right? The people who loved us most taught us to be afraid of all these things. The people who love us most have taught us like this huge, horrible myth and habit. And the habit is that I know what to do, I just need to do it. I know. Yeah, I just know. And if you don't believe me, look around the room, because I'm guessing there's more than 4 realtors in this office. And yet they said, hey look, we're flying this guy out here from the mainland. He's a national maps coach with Keller Williams. He's going to be on the islands. He's saying he'll teach for free. He just wants to contribute to our lives. He'll teach you for free. You just paid $800 for Bold. You're going to get that level of like this thinking today. You're going to get a deposit. Just come. You don't have to pay anything. Just be there, and he's going to pour into your lives. And like 4 people show up, and that's okay. But what does it say about their thinking? That they're like, eh. What it says is they think they're good. There's nothing to learn here. I know what to do. I just need to do it. I talk to realtors all the time. I know what to do. I know what to do. I know. And you're like, but do you? It's like me saying I know how to be a woman. And you're like, but do you? You really don't. Because I think if you did, you would do it. I really do. I think that with given the choice, we would all make $1 million a month. I think we would. Because we would just say, well, we're not going to do bad things. Well, I'll go ahead and take the lotto money, and then I'll do good things with it. But we just don't know what we don't know, or we know that we don't know. So how do we create a habit of it? Well, there's this consciousness, the levels of awareness that come in the world, and only 5% of the world has a world-class consciousness, this awareness that like has access to these things. The reason why rich people are rich is not because they're smarter than us, it's because they understand how money works. They have a consciousness around it. So much so that if you took away all of their money, right, took away their identity, if you took Warren Buffett, changed his identity, like this undercover boss thing, and you put him in Maui with no money, one outfit and everything, you'd come back in a year, he'd be the wealthiest guy on the island. Because he has access to how money works. 10% has a population, 70% has a middle class, working class. By the way, there's these studies that say, when we're born into these societies, there's a 73% chance that we're going to stay in there. Only about 27% of people break out of what they're born and just know it. Why? Because our dad just taught us how to be working class. That's all we know.
Thoughts, feelings.
Thoughts, feelings, just what we do. And to my mind, I'm going to do better than dad, so I'm the manager at the grocery store. It's like that, and it's just our consciousness. Most people fall into this category of this middle class. That's their consciousness. And it's not just about money. Remember, it's a way of thinking. Right? Money is good for the good that it does. Look at Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerberg. They're walking around in black t-shirts and black pants. They're not wearing Rolexes and gold chains and stuff like that. They're transforming the world because they've reached a level of consciousness that they're doing amazing things. Warren Buffett's going to give, he's got $130 billion net worth, and none of it's going to his family. He's going to give it all away to charity. Give it all away to charity. Why? Because he's just figured it out. It's like, people in my family, they get a college education, so he pays for school, and they get a free place to live. So they get a house, he buys everyone in his family. They got a house, so they got a place to live, and they get an education so that they know how to think. So a roof over their head and a way to think, and that's all they're getting from it. Everything else is going to charity. Jackie Chan has a great quote, and he's got like a $60 million, $100 million, I mean, the guy's got a lot of money because of his movies and stuff. He's got one son. In an interview, they were talking about how his son's not getting any of his money. He's giving it away to charity. And they're like, really, you're not going to leave it? You got one son, you're not going to leave this all to your son? And he goes, if I raise my son well, he won't need my money. And if I haven't raised him well, he'll only do bad things with my money. Either way, he's not getting it.
Yeah.
You know, like, that's powerful. Wow, that's cool. It's like, raise a man that doesn't need that in order to succeed, because otherwise you're just giving your money to a man that, like, is probably not going to have this consciousness about it. So this is a way of thinking, a level of consciousness, right? That's why rich people come in all shapes and sizes. You know, it's not like dunking a basketball. It's not about your physical ability. It's about the way of thinking. And world-class successful people, they create a habit around it. All right, so number 3, and again, these last 7 will go a little quicker than the first ones because we're setting a foundation. And in the Pareto's Law, we know that 80% of our success is about mindset. 20% of our success is about skill set. Well, what does that mean? It's a level of thinking. First comes thinking, then comes skills. That's the doing part of it, right? So the lead generation habit, we said this earlier, it's about creating, manifesting opportunities. I'm manifesting opportunities. That's my lead generation. There's opportunities out there all over the world, and what I'm doing is I'm being the creator of that. I'm manifesting and I'm speaking it into existence. I'm doing the things that create abundance for myself. That's what lead generation is to me. Now that might mean that I statistically find out that, you know, holding an open house gives me this $1 per hour, and that's great, but I'm manifesting the life that I want. I'm funding my life by design. What is your level of commitment to this? Do you have a naked goal? Do you have a non-negotiable, immovable goal around the activities it would take? Because we got a business goal, and that's the money it takes to live our life by, you know, our dream life, our life by design. And Gary Keller says we don't have goals. What we do is we focus on activities that will reach us our goals. So if I know I need this amount of money to have my life, what I got to do is identify the activities that give me that life, that give me that goal. And so how committed am I to those things? And I'll do an exercise with you guys and kind of break down what those things are. But what we know is once we've identified, the logic makes us think, emotions make us act. We're going to identify these activities, and then we got to put together a why. We got to put rocket fuel behind that emotion of it. Could you imagine if you got so excited about making money, so excited about holding an open house or showing a buyer, that like you felt like you feel when you watch a Rocky movie? Like that tingly adrenaline rush thing where you get the happy tear and you feel like you could take over the world because the Rocky music's playing. You're just so pumped up that you feel like you can do anything, run a marathon. And that's how excited you got about like doing an open house or showing a property, going on listing appointment, because you knew it's like, oh, my life is on the other side of that. Like, oh, it's so excited to live that best life. Like, you know. So if I told you, I go, look, I'm gonna buy one of you guys a Mediterranean, you know, vacation, fully paid, all expenses, everything. I'm gonna buy it for you guys. And what I did is I contacted a Hawaii travel agent, and I already prepaid for the whole thing. All you have to do is contact that travel agent and give him your name. He's going to expect your call, and he will set up all the details. It's fully on me. You can bring a friend. And how many people would want that? Right? So all of us would take, like, yeah, I'll take a 7-day Mediterranean cruise, fully paid and a +1. That sounds amazing. I'm like, but here's the deal. I told you I already paid. The travel agent knows you're going to call, but I'm not going to tell you which travel agent it is. Here's a list of 50 travel agents in town. You got to figure out which one it is. When you call him, the right one, and you say, hey, you know, my name's so-and-so, blah, 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 he'll know who you are, and that'll be the one, but you got to figure out which one he is. How many of you would just be like, well, that's not worth it?
Who would do
That's
that?
not worth it. $10,000 trip and blah, blah, blah. Like, no way. You know, because what if I called the wrong one and that travel agent was like, I don't know what you're talking about, lady. Like, you got the wrong guy. And you're like, I was bothering that guy. Let me just not call anyone else. Right? Would you
Great
guys think about
analogy.
that?
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, you wouldn't think like that. Why?
No.
Well, because you know the reward is there. You're like, I don't care. You're like, hey, sorry to bother you. You're the wrong guy. I'll talk to you later. Right? Moving on. What if you had to call all 50 and 49 people are like, chick, wrong number. Like, I don't even know who you are. I don't know who this Rob guy is. I don't know what Mediterranean trick you're talking. And you're like, all right. So you call the 50th name and he's like, I was waiting for your call. How'd you know? And you're like, I can't believe you called me. How'd you know to call me? Rob said he wasn't going to tell you where you are. You're like, you'll never believe it. I had to call 49 other guys before I found out you. But I knew you were out there. I didn't know who you were. I didn't know your name, but I knew you were out there. So I just had to call enough people that once I called you, you would know who I am because I called you and I said, hey, are you the guy who has my free trip from Rob Talbot? And he's like, oh my gosh, yes I am. How'd you get my number? Well, doesn't that happen sometimes with our friend? Like, call up and we're like, hey, what's going on? And they're like, oh my God, it's so weird you're calling me. I was just thinking about selling my house. So weird that we're bumping into each other. I was just thinking I need to buy a house. I was just thinking a refund. You're like, that is weird. Or is it? Right? I said, let there be light. The light turns on. Like, is it an intention that we're creating?
Yes.
Right? Lead generation, I'm manifesting. I'm generating it. I'm creating it. What's a lead? It's an opportunity. Doesn't mean you have to take advantage. I said, hey, here's a free trip. You want it? You're like, nah. Well, that's fine. But if you want it, and let's say one of you guys raise your hand, you're like, I'll take it. That's great. I just identified who it exists with. That's okay. Right? Just like you're making those calls. So when we're powered by the big why, you guys have a belief system, by the way. You have a belief that that trip is there because I told you it would be. And so far, I've been, your evidence is that I'm an honorable guy. I'm an honest guy. And, the results have been because I showed up with a lady who at least trusts me. If one person trusts him, like, she doesn't look crazy. He can't be that crazy. There's a little story with that. They sound like they're decent people. They said they have kids, right? There's a story. All these things, right? They're all just circling around. You're having these thoughts. Now, what if that, instead of an analogy, that was a real story and I really did it and one of you guys went on a trip? Fully paid, everything, and you had to make the 49 calls and this all was a real story. And you came back and you told that story in the market center. And we all laughed at how the idiots that didn't show up, this room should have been packed. It was amazing. Would it change the story?
Oh,
So I come back a year from now.
well, it changes there.
Do you think there's 8 people in the room now?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I think they're standing room only. Why? Because and by the way, the other 3 that didn't go on the trip are all millionaires. 1 year from now, all 4 of you have been transformed into millionaires. One of you went on a trip to Europe fully paid for free. And they're like, wait a minute, I missed a class that somehow, some way, and you're like, what did Rob do for you? Make call. And like, no, we went to one class. I haven't talked to him since. And I'm telling you, he put a thought in my mind, and like it was inception, man. I couldn't get rid of it. I couldn't shut it off. And all of a sudden, I just started doing these things and working on these things, focusing on it. And all of a sudden, a year later, I'm a millionaire. And I show up, I'm like, hey, has any of this stuff worked for you? You're like, Rob, we need to buy you dinner. We're going to Mama's. We're paying. You and your wife, we got to tell you our story. Like, it's been amazing. You transformed our lives with just one day. And you guys have been telling this story for a year, and what would we have? We'd have like 200 people out the door. We'd have 500 people from other companies. Everybody's like, is this the Rob? Is this the guy that made you 4 millionaires and took you to Greece and all this stuff? You're like, yeah, he paid for the whole trip. And we go, and he's going to come teach again. And the room would be full of all these people because they would have a story and they'd have a belief and it'd be making them think that maybe they're the lucky one that will become a millionaire and that that's feeling pretty good to them and they want that, they want what you have. And so they're willing to show up and do the work and all this stuff and they want the result, right? It's like all these things now they're just happening. Why? All because we got 4 people to think differently. You're like, this is how stuff works when we have a higher level of consciousness. Wealthy people in the world just believe this. They just believe this. They're just like, no, like, I don't know if you want to call it the secret, whatever, like whatever. It just works. Like, I don't know how it works. Like, I don't think that like Christians have it all figured out. I think I've got some friends that got some wacky. I don't think I have it all figured out, and I don't think that a lot of people. I don't think we're intended to have it all figured out. I really don't. I think if we were supposed to have it all figured out, then we would have just been born with it all figured out. We would have. But you know what? Like you read the Bible and stuff, and God says, you know what? Every man is born with the inherent knowledge of knowing that there's a creator. And he says we're born with that. And you look at every society, every civilization. I was in South America, and every society for eternity has been trying to identify. They had internal knowledge that they were creating. They were trying to identify. First they thought it was crocodiles, then the sun, and then whatever. But they were born with it. I'm like, it lines up. Now they're talking to us like a 1-year-old, but it lines up. Like they were born with the inherent knowledge. The rest you have to believe. They say you have to have faith. You have to believe this stuff. You have to seek it. And you're not going to understand it all. That's why they don't give it to you all. You're not, if so, we would have just had you born with it. My body's pumping blood and doing all these things. We would have just had that knowledge the same way. Not intended to do it, but we are seeking it. What if we had a naked goal, a commitment that was so strong and so powerful that we were like, this is non-negotiable. Like, oh my gosh, it doesn't make me a bad person. It's just non-negotiable. I'm going to have $1 million a year because I just want good things for my life. And that's our lead generation goal. Well, check this out. I did some math here. To make $1 million in GCI. And now, by the way, this is in one of my market centers, $6,300 in commission. It would take 159 sites. So it would obviously take about half that to do it here on the island, right? So $6,300 per commission, 159 sites. You would need 954 METs in your database. Some people that were on a 33 touch because you had met them, and you're marketing to them. Now there's going to be about a 10% return from that. Out of that, you got about 70% of the people that you generate leads with are going to then list with you, and so on. And all the math comes all the way down to where you close 159 transactions from this amount of people. Now at 29 touches, if I automated 29 touches at 75 cents a piece, it'd be a 20,000. Now it's not that every 29 touch costs me money. Some are emails, some are postcards, but ultimately I'm going to average out 29 or 75 cents per touch. Maybe I send some newsletters, some postcards, and then others are emails and so on. But I'm going to average 75 cents per touch for $20,000 to communicate on my autopilot. So I'm going to set up a system that communicates with 954 people for $20,000 a year. And then there's 4 touches that require my time, and that's the voice-to-voice. So 4 touches, we got about half an hour left, so we've got plenty of time to get through this and give you guys another exercise. This is a pretty cool and fun exercise when you do this. Remember, we're thinking differently, right? We're thinking like CEOs. We're thinking like the top 5% of the population, the world, and we're thinking in possibilities. We're thinking, hello, how are you? Aloha.
Aloha. Good to see you.
Yeah, how did you travel?
Hi.
Are you coming straight from Austin right now?
I went through California, yes.
Okay.
I just got off the plane.
Welcome home.
All right.
I'm like,
What a trooper.
I'm like, oh.
Yeah, right to them. Just going to work.
I know. How's it going? Good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We're transforming lives right now.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
That's just what we do.
That's what we
It's
do.
just what we do. We got the 5 in the box. I was like, Lisa, do not put any more than 5 people in that room because we're going to transform.
Well, these are the most
This is it.
amazing
All
5
right.
people.
So with an effective 33 touch. Now, the key word there is an effective, which means is one that's proven, right? We're not going to just like make up some 33 touch program. We're going to use an effective one, that one that's proven. And there's lots of models out there of proven effective 33 touches. When we use that, 29 touches, 20 grand, but 4 of them have to be voice to voice. So remember, we think differently now, right? Is anyone in here thinking differently besides?
Yes.
Okay, we're thinking differently. Because that's what CEOs do. The average commission out here is 17 grand, you said? By the way, I don't know about you,
I was just
but
redoing it.
I don't know about you, but my plane ticket round trip was like $200, you know, back and forth. So I'm guessing when you go from Maui to Oahu and back, it's about the same, $250 or something like that, right? $200.
130.
$130 round trip. Okay, I got ripped off.
Yeah.
Great. They knew I was from LA when I was on my, you know,
I told
whatever.
them.
Yeah.
Charge more.
Yeah, charge them more.
I think they
His
actually
IP
do
address is
that.
from California. Charge them more.
Yeah.
I think they know where you're calling from or using the
Yeah,
app
I think
from.
they do. Yeah, they know. Yeah. Kevin said the same. He's like, should have used our corporate account. Yeah, I'm like, dude, I don't know what I don't know. Like, I went on to Expedia, you know. Like, so here's the thing. We got 4 voice-to-voice touches. Okay. Now, if I built a campaign, you're like, Rob, I can't do that here. I can't do that here. Maui's too small.
Oh,
Yeah.
Is that a limiting belief?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so there was 3,000 homes that sold. Like, all I need to sell is 159. So first of all, it's a limiting belief to think that you can't sell 159 homes on this island. It's a limiting belief, absolutely. You're not thinking big enough. And I will tell you that if I also chose to go to the million people on Oahu and market myself to them and say, you know what if I did the same thing there, because I've got this limiting belief about Maui, so I'm going to do the same thing over there. And I'm going to market my database, I'm going to advertise, and I'm going to spend $200 or $130 a week. And I'm going to fly to Oahu once a week so I'm physically there so that I can be like doing client stuff and showing houses and doing all those things. I'm going to have a database on Oahu as well. And now we have a database that does the same thing. Like, and now we're like, well, I guess that's possible. Now, if I was making $1 million a year, would I spend $500 to $1,000 a month on the 30-minute flight that it takes to get over to where my listings are going to be in Oahu? Absolutely. In fact, like in LA, there's days where I spend 3 hours in traffic, driving, slow motion. If I tell you what, getting into that airport, getting on a plane and shuttling over there was a lot easier than getting in LA traffic and going. I might do it every day. I might do it every day if there was enough money. So we're just going to scratch this and say, absolutely, there's no limiting beliefs here, that we can either do it on this island, and if we have to, we'll fly over every day to Oahu, and we'll do it there, because there's 1 million people on that island. So this is absolutely possible here. So 4 voice-to-voice touches. We've now eliminated that objection, right? Because we think differently. There was a study that said that the average transaction, real estate transaction, I told you earlier, it takes 48 billable hours of work. So there's 48 billable hours in a real estate transaction. So if there's 48 billable hours, take 48 hours and take 17,000 divided by 48. What does that give us?
354.
Is it 354 exactly?
And 17 cents.
Okay. When we work as real estate agents, you guys, your job, remember I told you, guys, most people don't even know what their job is. I'm going to let you in on this. This is what your job pays you per hour. This is your job. You guys make $354 an hour.
Woohoo!
Yeah. And does it feel like you make $354 an hour?
No.
Well, why is that?
well, actually,
Productivity.
it's because of the way you think. Because I've been doing this for 30 years, and for the first 20, I didn't think that way.
Yeah.
But now, I don't hang out in the middle. I'm here, and I'm
Yeah.
where I'm going, and I look over the whole year,
Yeah.
not this day, this week, this month.
And you're looking at things different, right?
Yeah,
So
you
what
look
we
at things
also realize
differently.
is like, no, so this is what we make. Every agent in this office makes this. Every agent. This is what they make per hour, because the study showed it takes 48 hours end to end to make money on a transaction. $354 an hour.